Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our submission hearings for the draft Trading in Public Places Bylaw consultation. We are being live streamed, so welcome to everyone who's watching at home. We seem to have a thinned out council today. We have apologies from the Mayor, from Councillor John Falloon and Councillor Angus Mackay. We have just a few submitters this morning. We've had a couple of apologies, but we'll start the morning off with Andrew and Mel from Tumeki Barbecue. Welcome up to the table.
Thank you.
And the submission that is on our page 33, councillors.
Yep.
And we'll 5 minutes to, if you need it, just to make your presentation, and then we'll have 5 minutes for questions from the councillors. So welcome.
Opening, our popularity grew in Ashburton, and before we knew it, we had a fully sustainable small business. So much so I left my full-time job and the stable income that came with it to pursue our dream full-time and give it everything we had. To only find out a month later we'd be moved on, which was very disheartening and worrying to us as we support our family through this one income now. The proposed location for a food truck on East Street, in our opinion, is not suitable for one food truck, let alone the 3 to 4 that are currently operating from Baring Square East. We have observed that there is never a free parking spot in this location, and with the opening of the Bylaw supermarket across the road, this will only get worse. We also operate at night, and there is no lighting nor is there power to accommodate the food trucks. Our proposed spot for Tumeki Barbecue and any other food truck that would like to join us would be Baring Square West, which is just out front of the old council building, as there is ample parking, lighting and away from CBD businesses, yet we don't feel we are being temporarily placed somewhere out of the way, which is what the current location suggests. The only addition we are asking for is a power connection. We see this as fair and reasonable within our current daily rental, which annually is $3,120. With each food truck operating, this multiplies. I see this as a very good positive investment in the food truck scene in Ashburton. Our dream for food trucks within Ashburton is to have a location where everyone is welcome. There is possible seating or grassed area for people to bring picnic blankets in summer to enjoy some amazing food and coffee. There are places that have done this successfully in other towns, for example Kirby Lane in Nelson, which I recommend you look up. It's really an amazing space. Which is an amazing space and atmosphere. We believe this is what Ashburton needs to add vibrancy and a point of difference to the CBD. The community here has made their voice known to us about how much they love having food trucks here. We are very open to having a discussion about other alternatives, and we appreciate you allowing us to put our point of view across and see where we can align on something and come to a solution. Lastly, I'd like to say we feel Ashburton is our new home. We've been welcomed with open arms by the community here, and we love it. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. Mel, do you have anything to add? No, you're all good, thank you. Councillors, any questions for Andrew and Mel? Councillor Wilson.
Yes, good morning to you both.
Thank you.
When you say Baring Square West, do you mean on
well, any of the streets,
angle parking's here, or down each end, or
anywhere.
We just want
just want a permanent spot. That's kind of we've done the business model of travelling around, and it just doesn't work. You lose customers in the transition between spots. We just want one spot where we can,
And a safe spot.
yeah, safe spot with lighting, power. That's, yeah.
Thank you, councillor Lovett.
I'm just going to ask, have you had a good look around town since you've been here and have identified any sites? You know, you talk about the laneway. I mean, we've seen places like this and they've worked really well. So have you had a good look around our town to see what or where this could take place in the future?
I'm not sure where council land is, so I don't know. I have approached businesses, Justin at the juice signs area, but that's all getting developed, so he's not really open to discussing about food trucks because there's going to be restaurants in there. We've also gone to Tricroft development. We looked at getting a permanent space because this really has just thrown our business completely up in the air. So yeah, we have looked around and asked other businesses. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, councillor Cameron.
Are you currently parked up on Havelock Street? Are you over by?
No, on East Street. So on the Havelock Street spot is currently always taken with parking. There's always cars there. So
So you're on East Street. Down by the clock.
Yep, right in front of the clock tower.
And you don't want to go East Street opposite the post office where the new super.
There's no parking ever there.
So that's what your submission is, because that would be the only.
That was the that was the suggested spot in the email, the brief that was sent out to us. But there's, I don't know if you've ever, obviously you need to sit there for a bit, but we're there a whole day, 2 days trade, and we watch it, and there's never any parking there, and that's from like 7 in the morning till. Yeah. Because and now the supermarket's open now, so that's always going to be
busy. I drove.
It's very busy.
Yeah. So, and the other point you make is the location's not ideal, but you need a powered site.
Yep.
When I read through the submissions, a lot of people object to the non-powered. A lot of people that have food stores and things object to the non-powered site, and a lot of the residents because of the noise. Yeah. So, as a generator, if you didn't have a powered site, would you introduce a generator, or you'd not?
If there was no powered site, we'd have to get a generator, but.
It's very expensive.
It's fuel costs is astronomical now. Like we ran it in Selwyn, and in Selwyn we were tucked in the darkest corner of Rolleston. We had to run a generator, and that was horrible. Like our power bill was like $100 a week just to run fuel. It was and then you got service costs and all that kind of. It just piles on.
It just adds on. Okay. Yeah. Hey, thank you very much. Good submission.
But I feel like with a daily rental, I feel the council could recoup the cost of putting in a powered site within 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, and then it becomes an investment, and that's just a future investment.
Yeah. But not in that location, regardless, is what you're telling us.
Well, there's just no parking. There's no parking spots. There's no lighting. There's no. Yeah, I feel like an open park kind of area or something to that effect.
Righto. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've just got one question. What hours do you normally operate? Are you there for the lunchtime trade and dinner, or?
Yeah, we do. Currently, we do Thursday and Friday, 11 a.m. till 2, and then we close our doors. We leave the food truck there, and then we go away and come back at 5 and do till 7, 8ish. Yeah, and then Saturday night only, just a dinner service.
Right. That's great, thank you. Doesn't look like there's any more questions, so thank you very much for coming in and making your submission. It was really good.
Thank you.
We have got a few more people to hear this morning, and then we will go into deliberations this afternoon.
Cool.
And someone will let you know the outcome.
That's great.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Oh yes, that's right. I didn't know that. Sorry, deliberations this morning. So our next speaker, we have Christine and Balwant, is that correct? Yes. The submission is on page 12. And you're from Christabel's?
That's correct.
So you're welcome to speak to your submission, and up to 5 minutes, and then we will have questions after that. And it has been live streamed, so you can...
Good morning, everyone. I'm Belmont, and this is Christine. We're from Christabel's. We grow and sell berry fruit and produce along with other added value products which we make from our own fruit and produce that we grow down here at the domain. And this is our sole income, our livelihood from now on, because we've both given up our jobs and that. To sell our products, it takes us an hour to 2 hours to actually set up because of the number of things that we have. And to do this, we really need to be close by toilets. And that's where the domain is okay, but we can't just close up and go down to the toilet unless there's both of us there. So that's a bit of a, well, not an issue, but it's just something we have to work around. We're not like the other food traders, and that's nothing against them or anything, but we're there for the whole day, not just there, you know, for a few hours.
Like from 9, in the summer it's 9 till 6. So yeah,
It
it's
take,
a long day.
Christine, if you want to speak, you'll just need to turn your microphone on because then it, other one, yeah. So then people can hear it through the live stream. Thank you.
some of the places that the council have suggested, we totally rely on passing traffic. I would say 90% of our customers is just passing traffic. It's not, we get locals, but we have to totally rely on the passing traffic. And that's where Rakaya, we have those said by the railway terrace, I feel wouldn't suit us, but I don't really see how it even suits some of the other, like the food trucks and that sort of thing too, because they're not there where it's visible for the public that are passing.
And also it's too far away from the toilets.
We've found, we did apply to go to Hines last year, but declined, and because they said it was the grass area. Now, I'll be honest, we tried it to see how it was like, and it was quite good. People stopped, appreciated it, and so we went to the council
And applied for a license.
it and told no, it wasn't a designated area, which is fine, we stopped. And the excuse was about the grass, which sort of confused us because the person over at
Mefton.
Methven, you have had a look at where he's got his food truck, the grass has been all trampled down and, you know, it's just about dirt now. It was dirt. So that was rather confusing for us. The other site, is it Havelock Street down on that, down here?
Yes.
I don't really see how that even works for anybody because you got yellow lines. So that was a, to me, the council had made a really bad sort of mistake.
And no toilets.
Yeah, the toilet facilities. The other thing was, we don't really see how others have been set up and got away with it. An example is the Lions have gone down the road at Forest Lake Road, sold from there. There's been people on at Tynwald have got away with it too, and we, you know, we're just going by what the council says. And to us, you know, it's like one set of rules for one and another for others. So, you know, it's,
Yeah, they're not designated sites that some of these people sit at.
and even last week, and this is nothing personal against the lady who's down at the
Business park.
business park, but she's in the paper there on the front page of the Courier. Is that a?
Just let you know she's actually here.
Oh, sorry. I've got nothing
This is Sheree. No, you're
I've got nothing personal against. She was just, you know, it's in a designated area.
Yeah, because the council says you can only sit in their sites, designated sites, and then there's so many people over the summer and everywhere, sitting anywhere they want, and they're not the sites to be sitting in. Why do they get away with it?
So we'd also like to know if you've got permission from a private owner, are we allowed to set up
On private
on
land.
private land? That's the other thing. So
No, I think that's all.
That's
Thank you.
all.
Yeah.
That's all.
Just that toilets need to be wherever we are because we're there for such long hours. Not 10 minutes walk down the road, which makes it hard.
we
have
can't just
two
close the
people-
door,
Yeah,
you know, like the other
So
traders
you
can.
need to be situated
Yeah.
beside a toilet. We
yeah.
probably can't build toilets in every site.
We would like to go to Hines. That's our main thing here for today is to set up at Hines. It's a site off the road, main road, good parking for the customers, it's safe. We don't understand why we can't go there.
Can you tell whereabouts?
Well, you got the
So inside the domain or
yeah, the
just
toilets
behind
are
the
at front.
toilets?
We would like to set up on the grass behind them. That way we're not anywhere near the road. People can pull in and park. It's all safe.
Right, okay. That's, yeah, it's in the domain, yes.
Yeah.
We'll go to questions now. So I've got one from Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Welcome you too. You've just sort of answered my question. I come from Hines.
Yeah.
You're going to come in the gate and go towards the swimming pool or in behind the toilet sort of?
Behind the toilet.
Yeah, sort of opposite the pool. The pool's on that side, we go on the other side.
Yeah, it gets quite muddy just in there at the moment. We were out there the other day and it is quite muddy, so that's why perhaps the council said no. When you set up at Hines, will you have a weekly run, will you? One day at Hines,
Yeah.
one day somewhere
Yeah,
else?
that's
Is
what
Is that your plan?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. And Jane has just mentioned that if you set up on a some private land, you need a resource consent for that. So you can do it, but you just need a resource consent. Any other questions? Councillor Brum.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you for submission. My question is, you want to stand in Hines one day and then go somewhere else. So how many places would you use during a week? Because there's only a couple of places where toilets are.
We've done Methven as well,
Okay.
which is good. But for us, weather dictates a lot to us because we have a lot of money tied up in our goods, and we just can't close up if the weather, if it starts to rain or something like that. So, but most of the time, we do Saturday and Sunday, or if it's a public holiday, we do the public holiday down at the main here as well.
Okay.
So we'd probably be doing 2 days here,
Maybe 2 at Hines.
2 at Hines, and maybe 1 at Methven.
Excellent. So all those places basically have toilets at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thanks, Liz. You obviously wouldn't need a powered site, or do you generate your own power, or you just don't need power?
No, well, with our licence, we're allowed to sell ice blocks and drinks, and we have our own portable freezer, which is run off a car battery, so there's no
power.
no power.
Thank you. Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you for your submission. My question's around the Rakaya. So did you ask if you could be on the area where the salmon is? And the
Behind the toilets, yes.
in the back of there on the
Yeah.
grass? And there was a definite no by the look of it. Thank you.
Thank you. So at the moment, just your main site is the domain
Domain.
lay-by, and the reason why that's unsuitable is because the toilets are...
Yes, it's becoming an issue with the toilets because it means that both of us have to be there, especially in the summer when we're picking fruit. Only needs one of us there to sell, but we have to have 2 because of the toilet situation.
Yep, I know, that's good. Any more questions? I think that's it. Thank you very much for coming in and making your submission today. You're welcome to stay. Our next submitter is unable to come, so we might have a wee break. We've got our next submitter at 9:40 and then one after that at 9:50, and then that's it for the morning. Mel, do you want to start on deliberations now, or should we adjourn? Is it better to adjourn?
Madam Chair, I think it's probably wiser to adjourn until we've heard all the
Thank you.
submissions.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay,
Fairly deliberate after we've heard everything.
so we will adjourn until this next submitter comes in at 9:40, and then we'll have one after that. So everyone's welcome to go and grab a cup of tea and be back here at 9:40. Thank you. Do you want to Here we go. So welcome back. We've got two more submissions for the draft trading in public places bylaw consultation, and we welcome Donna up from the Ashburton Citizens Association. If you'd like to come to the table, and 5 minutes or thereabouts for your submission and questions afterwards.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Madam Deputy Mayor. Good morning, councillors. Firstly, I bring apologies from the Chair of the Citizens Association, Greer Ricketts, who's isolating at present, as I believe many in our community are. You will have read my submission. We agree with the name change to Trading in Public Places bylaw, which, as Council has quite rightly identified in your consultation document, better reflects the purpose of the bylaw. We disagree with East Street in front of the town clock, and disagree with East Street opposite the old post office. The reasons we gave for that was difficult for mobility access, particularly with higher gutters in front of the green area, close proximity to Mingwa, Taste Cafe, Triangle food vendors, which include the Triangle Fish and Chip Shop, Dandin's Smorgasbord, Taste Cafe, and if rumours are to be believed, there is another food vendor going in that location. And also on the way here today, I note that Tonga Growers and Traders on Will Street are also selling hot food. And of course, yesterday on the front page of the Ashburton Guardian, we saw that the Ballier supermarket is also opening up right in the very building that we're talking about. My husband went up there yesterday to do some reconnaissance for me and find out what they are selling, and I understand currently they're selling hot pies, but that may well expand to other hot food. The other area that we had concern about was the Havelock Street Cul-De-Sac, which is very close to residential properties. This location would be a distraction alongside a state highway, and quite regularly early in the morning I head to EA Networks, and it is a very busy area. There is a traffic island for pedestrians in the middle of the road, where the road intersects with Walker Street, and also Oak Grove intersection feeding on to Alpha Forest Road as it becomes River Terrace. I've then gone on with some additional comments, such as would like the mobile shops close to bins and public conveniences, that smoke-free Aotearoa 2025 be considered alongside this, that there are smoke-free areas around the vendors. And other than the CBD, there's nothing on the east side of Ashburton, which is a theme that I have continually been bringing up to each of my submissions. Thank you for hearing them. Future EA Network sports fields to be developed in Argyle Park may also be suitable sites for vendors. And then I had a left field thought with the Ashburton Airport, that it's wonderful to see Lakehood in there as options for vending sites. However, I've been to many events at the Ashburton Airport. Some include the stock car racing, events at the airport itself, public days, and I imagine that that is managed by council and therefore considered a public site, and wonder why no sites were identified there. And then I repeat myself from previous submissions about reserve management plans, but I did note in the consultation document that there is the lay-by at the Ashburton Domain being identified as a vending site, and wonder if the same consideration could be given to other reserves. Thank you very much for the opportunity to submit, and I wish council all the best in its consideration.
Thank you, Donna. I'll go to questions now. First one from Councillor Brahm.
Thank you, Donna. East side. Where are we going to put them? Any places?
Well, that does highlight the fact that there is a lack of reserve on the east sides. However, the Northeast Industrial Park, it was recently suggested to me that there are a lack of food outlets out at the Northeast Industrial Park, and perhaps somewhere there. A cemetery would not seem appropriate. And I think that somewhat exhausts the council reserves on the east side. However, if council does find a location where they can create a reserve, absolutely I would like to see this incorporated, a vending site incorporated into a future reserve.
But do you have a place in mind, or a couple of places what you think could be right?
Yes.
You live in all the sites, so you should know more about it than I do.
Yes, I am. I've been a resident. Growing up in Ashburton, I grew up in Tynwald, but for the last 30 years I've resided on the east side of Ashburton, and our business is over there. 25 years we've been in business. I imagine that as the new development happens on the east of Trevors Road, that would be a wonderful location for council to be talking to developers and acquiring land over there specifically for the purpose of creating recreational and event space on the east side of Ashburton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to ask about Havelock Street site. You're against that site, but at the moment we often see the Lions selling potatoes and a few strawberry people or raspberry people selling around Christmas time, so you wouldn't like to see them there in future, or just use it as a discretionary site? Or
So the biggest concern that I was raising was traffic flow.
okay.
And that it is a distraction. Where our business is on the corner of Wills and Cass just last week, even though there is a garden bed that council maintain with bright yellow lines around it saying no stopping, just last week I witnessed someone pull up on the yellow lines to duck across to the Salvation Army to make a donation and then come back to the vehicle. So while yellow lines are deterrents for good law-abiding citizens, there are always those who will disregard or not see. Sometimes it's purely innocent. So my concern was primarily for traffic.
For traffic, okay.
Right.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. Thanks for your submission, Donna. My question is, with your comments on the east about the foodies on the east side, do you envisage I'm trying to separate whether you see it as like the people who provide an evening meal in their food wagons, or whether it would be like a coffee cart outside the Oxford Street Stadium when there's a basketball tournament on, as opposed to a place where foodies could park. And would we have enough people? You'd have to have an attraction, I would think, to go that side. You know, I'm trying to separate coffee carts from foodies. What would be your view?
And of course, the example that Councillor Lovett gave, where there are small vendors as well, and there are different categories. I have actually been to Oxford Basketball Stadium and witnessed several vendors, but they are on school land, so that doesn't come under your purview. However, what do I imagine? I guess it's difficult because the example I brought today, and for the last 2 visits I've been quoting the Ashburton Guardian, and normally it's referring to councillor comments, but this one highlights the fact that it's been a tough couple of years during COVID, particularly for landlords, for commercial tenants, and for commercial businesses. And when the Ballier supermarket comes in and they are selling food, if the intention is to have a mobile shop directly across the road from them, what priority does a commercial business or landlord have over a mobile shop? And is a restaurant a deterrent from having a mobile shop directly across the road? Or is it any food seller? I have had occasion where we have called council to regulate because mobile coffee shops have been directly outside the cinema and we sell coffee. However, it's difficult to write bylaws that capture what is fair. And I guess what is fair for council is, does a ratepayer have priority over a mobile shop fee payer? And I don't have the answer for that. That is your consideration.
Thank you, thank you.
I've just got one question, Donna. The East Street, so where the mobile shops are set up now by the clock tower on East Street, and you said there were mobility issues with that site, was that correct?
No, my intention was that the proposed site under the grass might be an issue, particularly if you're in a wheelchair. Curiously, as I came here today, I watched a mobility scooter in the middle of the road cross over to the middle of the road and then duck onto the footpath. But there are very deep gutters, particularly running along that east side. However, last time I came to submit to council, there were 2 vendors directly outside the town clock with raised covers for power cords, and I tripped over it and I watched a mobility scooter struggle to get over that as well. So that was what prompted me to submit on mobility access.
Right, thank you. But do you agree with the current site outside the clock tower?
No, as I submitted, I see that the town clock is one of the most popularly photographed sites in Ashburton, and they are somewhat of a distraction if you're trying to take photographs, which is why the move to Havelock Street had somewhat solved that. But in the current situation, while the building is being constructed, those sites are now limited.
Okay. Great, thank you. I don't think we've got any further questions. Oh, sorry, yes, Councillor Wilson's got a...
Morning, Donna.
Good morning,
We've
Councillor
had a
Wilson.
submission that perhaps somebody could use Bering Square West instead of Bering Square East. Did you have any opinions about this side of the main road for this side of West Street, perhaps along beside the council, or you have any objections if we had food stalls over here?
Okay, so Councillor Wilson, this now is my personal opinion, not the Citizens Association. My personal opinion is Bering Square West demands a certain amount of reverence with the cenotaph, and that cenotaph is there for the entire community to be reminded of the sacrifices made for us. I personally would not like to see it there. However, yeah, no, that's where I'll go full stop. Yeah, personally, thank you.
Thanks for that. Thank you for coming in and making a presentation. I think we're seeing you again this afternoon.
Yes, and I will have company this afternoon. It will not
Excellent.
just be I. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. Next we have Dan McLaughlin from the Methven Community Board, submission on page 27. Morning, Dan.
Good morning, Madam Deputy Mayor and councillors. So I'll take our submission as read, but the Community Board agrees that these mobile vendors do make it more of a colourful sort of part of the community. At the moment, Methven's about to go into its quite busy period. We've got one of those vendors operating there. A lot of businesses are struggling, only operating, between 4 and 5, sometimes 6 days. Very few of them are operating 7 days a week. It is good to have a vendor there filling some of those gaps. The thing on it is, it does say in the bylaw that you can't be within 100 metres of an opposing business. The thing that I was quite concerned about, or see lacking of it, is you can get your permit to go set up your mobile shop and you can be there all year round, which it seems strange that you shouldn't have time limits on. Why can a mobile shop be a permanent business? It should be a mobile shop, not a permanent business. So that was one that I found quite unusual. The other one is in the bylaw. It says quite a few times at the staff's discretion. which is always a challenging one because then it becomes, can be a bit fluffy, some of the parts of the bylaw. You do need flexibility, so I don't know where you find the balance in that, because you can't write a bylaw that's going to cover everything, 'cause things are going to come up. So it seems like, to me, a few of those things in the bylaw need tightening up, and like time restrictions or that sort of thing, because you're still going to understand that there is other business out there paying rates, paying insurance, all the rest of it, and they're trying to make a viable business too. So you got to find that balance. I don't know exactly how you do that for all vendors. Apart from that, that's pretty much how I cover it. Any questions?
Thanks, Dan. Good comment about a mobile shop being in a permanent position. I think that's something that we need to probably take note of. Just in regards to the other sites in Methven, we did receive quite a few submissions, especially around Lockheed Crescent. Just wondering the Methven Community Board's view on that.
Yeah, so the policy team come to the community board and come up with these 2 extra sites for stallholders only. They're not actually for vendor, they're just for stallholders only. It went out and for consultation and did get quite a few comments. I've seen a few submissions from that, and we've had a few comments from residents around the area too. Because it's only stallholders, when you read through their comments, it seems like most of these things would be litigated anyway. That's not a big problem. But before we didn't have any. We proposed for 2. If we end up with 1, that'd be a move in the right direction. I would say you have to listen to the other submitters, and they feel it's not appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions for Dan? Councillor Rawlinson?
I'll just go back to my question to Donna. So with the Lockheed Crescent, which obviously by the submissions is not a popular choice, was that for one-off events, or was that to allow a vendor to be there, say, every evening to provide hamburgers or whatever they choose to cook?
It was for stall holders only, so like one-off events, like if I don't know, like the school wanted to do a fundraiser, they could go there. The other one, Chambers Park, it's something like the Christmas parade ends up there, and they could have stall holders, so that fits in well for that one, because they do a Christmas parade that ends up there. So it's events like that, is my understanding.
So the residents up there, did they understand that, or I wondered when I read all the objectives whether their fear is that they're going to have a little van sitting there with a generator churning out hot food in the evenings, and that they didn't see that as appropriate.
Not 100% sure if they understood that, but looking at their comments, it was about parking and rubbish bins and those sort of general comments. So it's not a cul-de-sac, it's a crescent, but it's a very quiet crescent. There's a lot of traffic through there, and I think they were worried about the change and that being the issue.
I understand that, thank you.
And just to comment on that, because I got quite a few phone calls from people, and I did explain that it was just for stallholders, it wasn't for mobile shops, but again, it's a quiet residential area, they didn't want lots of cars parked up, so that was sort of their main reason for opposition on that. Yeah. Looks like no further questions. Thank you very much, Dan, for coming down.
Magic, thank you very much.
So that finishes our submissions for the morning. We're due to have a morning tea break and then go into deliberations, but I think we'll just have a 15-minute break. And is that going to give you enough time, Mel? So we'll just have a 15-minute break now, and then we will go into deliberations. Thank you. of the draft trading in public places bylaw consultation. You're welcome to take your masks off since we don't have any public here at the moment. We welcome Mel and Rick at the top table, and Mel, you're going to be running through the deliberations, and we've all got a summary of feedback. We've all read every submission on this, so Mel will ask you to lead us through this, and please put your light on if you have any questions going through, and then we'll be asked to make decisions as we go. Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you. So if it's okay, I'll run through the presentation, and if councillors have any questions on anything that hasn't been covered, we can go over those at the end. Cool. So just as a quick recap, we noted these key changes in the consultation document. So we had the bylaw name change, the additional permitted sites, so the old post office area, the 3 sites at Lakehood, the East Street concrete pad, Lockheed Crescent, Chambers Park, and the 3 sites in Rakaia. And then we have the Havelock Street site, which was updated from permitted to discretionary, and the Salmon site in Rakaia. So there was a total of 29 submissions received, and we've heard from 4 of these submitters this morning. In terms of support for the proposed changes, we had 86% support for the bylaw name change and 48% support for the new proposed sites. So these are the 5 key things that submitters commented on. So 3 submitters commented on the Havelock Street Bering Square East site being removed from the permitted schedule. 4 submitters commented on the proposed Lakehood sites. 6 submitters commented on the proposed Lockheed Crescent site. 2 commented on Chambers Park, and 2 commented on the Rakaia sites. So if you cast your mind back to the workshop that we held in March, Council indicated the preference to change the Bering Square East site on Havelock Street from being a permitted site to a discretionary site. 2 submitters opposed this change and 1 submitter supported it. So Council has options to revert back to the original bylaw and include the site as permitted, or make no changes to the draft bylaw. So what's the preferred option?
Thank you. So just a question, at the moment the East Street site where we heard from the Tumeki barbecue area, is that a permitted site at the moment because it got moved from the Havelock Street site, is that correct?
It's not permitted. My understanding is that in the meantime we're allowing them to go there. But if council would like us to look into allowing them to stay there permanently, we can look into that and bring a recommendation back on the 27th of July.
Yeah, as a permitted site. Just an indication of what councillors think of that. Do you think that is a... So we've got, I suppose, 2 options, because we could either use that East Street site as a permitted site, or we could revert back to using this Havelock Street site as a permitted site. So maybe we'll just get a bit of comment or questions from people around the table. Carolyn, you're first.
I know that we have 3 permitted sites in town, in front of the new supermarket, the post office, the lay-by, the domain lay-by, and the Havelock Cul-De-Sac. They're the 3 current permitted sites. None of those have power. So my first question is, are we going to put power in the... Because a lot of the objections to the carts was the noise.
This does have power.
So this site does have power?
This site has power, but I'm not talking about this. I'm trying to get the background before we move to this.
Right.
On the proposal in the document, there's 3 sites in town and none of them have power. So this has power. It's the only site we have that has power, so therefore that means it's quieter, for one point. It's also quite a good spot in that it's close to the CBD, and the people like using it. Obviously the public like to attend there because they do well. I personally would think we would leave that site in as as a site, because it doesn't sound to me like the grass site opposite the post office or the old post is going to be a goer. That's my opinion, but I would like to see more, if we're going to make it a permitted site like Havelock and the Domain, I would like to see some power.
Yeah, and maybe we can, as we go through that, we can discuss that. So your view is to leave the site as permitted and revert back to the bylaw. Diane, you're next.
Yeah, I think I tend to go permitted, but can someone please just clarify again, and I did read the consultation document, but permitted versus discretionary?
Mel, do you want to go through that?
Discretionary, we have set sort of time frames. So for this site, we had suggested that it would be allowed for one-off events.
Jane, yes.
Just to clarify before you go further with your discussion, Mel will correct me if my memory of this is wrong, but the whole reason we brought forward the review of this bylaw, because it's not due for review yet, is because our new building's going to have a cafe in it, and this site falls foul of the 100 metres. That was why we brought forward the whole review.
That's right.
Now, whether you want to worry about that or not, I don't know, but that's how we got to where we are today.
Thank you. And then, so if it's a permitted site, it can be within 100 metres of another establishment, is that correct?
Yes.
If it's a discretionary site, it can't be within.
It still can be if we've identified it as a site in the bylaw. The point when the 100 metre criteria comes into play is if there's a site that's not listed in the bylaw and somebody wants to apply to have their shop or stall there, then it needs to be not within 100 metres of a similar business.
Okay, thank you. Diane, Stuart?
I'm not completely clear. We're talking Bering Square East to me is East Street. Havelock Street is the one round the corner. We said we didn't want it on East Street or Havelock Street, but we were going to go down by the old post office. That's what we were thinking about?
Yes.
I think the one down by the old post office is not really viable because traffic too close to everything, so that's out. The one on Havelock Street round the corner, didn't one of our submitters say it was difficult to get in there because somebody was there semi-permanently or something? Is that?
I think through you, Madam Chair, that's what the barbecue chap said, that it's full and you can't get parks.
But he was quite happy with his site where he currently is now on East Street, just sort of between the clock tower and Havelock Street. But he said moving down by the old post office, the parking issues. So, but yes, it's okay. Because yes, and Jane's correct, we did say that we needed to move the Havelock site because of the cafe and the.
Well, at least consider it.
Consider it, yeah.
What you decide is what you decide.
Okay.
But the Havelock Street one, is it ever used, or is it because he said he couldn't get in with his barbecue? Is it because car parking, or is it other food wagons were always there?
I'll go to Mel.
Sorry, if I could just interrupt. Michelle is joining us through Teams and she has her hand up.
Oh, she does too.
We couldn't see.
Sorry, Michelle, you're behind us, so I couldn't see.
Sorry, so we're currently getting pricing to get power put at the new proposed site opposite the old post office, although we are aware through discussions with the various food vendors that they're not particularly keen on that site. We're also looking into getting power put in the lay-by. I expect it will be extremely costly, so we'd need to make sure that we do recover our costs. The issue with Havelock Street now is with the parking meters, what used to happen with the food vendors is they applied for a parking meter hood, so they would put it on, and then they would be able to go to their site. But with the parking meters going, there's no ability for them to make sure that their site is available. They were charged for the parking meter hood, so that's the problem now.
Okay, that
Thank
makes
you.
sense. Thanks, Michelle.
Yes, I can see once the new building's there, Havelock Street to me is going to be too busy, people going in and out of the council there and the library. So to me, it's either East Street or, you know, sort of each side of the clock tower, or else down here opposite the old post office. So even though I've been against parking near the clock tower, if we keep them well away from the clock, is the room, how much room is there from the clock tower to the corner so that they didn't obstruct people's view of the clock tower?
Michelle?
Boxes are to the left of the clock tower, so they really are needing to be between the clock tower and Havelock Street, if that makes sense. So
Yes.
To relocate them further away, the power boxes further away, would be extremely costly.
I'd have to check the plans, but we're putting more power in as part of the upgrade of Bering Square East. So that might not be an issue, but I would need to go back and ask the architect that question. But certainly has been provision for more power.
There would be less obstruction if they were north of the clock tower on East Street, but there's no power there at the moment.
Well, not yet, there's not, but once Bering Square is upgraded, there will be. And I think you're right, Councillor Wilson, about the Havelock Street East. That parking will become premium parking when the building and the library in particular are open. Yeah,
well, my opinion is we take Havelock Street out completely and then cancel the one opposite the old post office, leave East Street in, but somehow or other if we could go north of the clock tower. How many parks do they want on East Street around the clock tower?
Michelle, are you able to comment, or?
I would, my recommendation would be to limit it to 3 at any one time. I think if you've got more than 3, it becomes too congested. So currently, Anne might correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've got 3. We've got 1 round on Havelock Street and then 2 outside the clock tower. So that, I wouldn't think you'd need
You'll have to come up and talk a few.
It sounds like we have 3 outside the clock tower at the moment.
And 1 on Havelock. And 1 on Havelock.
Well, I would clump for none on Havelock Street and 3 on East Street, but 1 between the clock tower and Havelock Street and 2 between Havelock Street, between the clock tower and the Cameron Street, especially if we're going to rewire it.
Thank you. Lynette?
Yeah, I'm the same opinion with Stuart on this. Leave the 3 along by the clock tower, but not in front of it, and take out the post office site and take Havelock out, because we kind of need those people there if their food is different to what our new cafe is. Because if we're developing this park, we want people to go and sit there and enjoy it and spend time in it, and if the food vendors are there, it adds to the vibrancy in that area, because those people aren't going to go down to the restaurants, they're there, and I think it just adds to it, the flavour.
Thank you. Carolyn?
I like the idea of keeping it on Havelock Street for the moment. My question relates to the period of time that a permitted activity, that people apply for a licence. Is that correct in that that Dan brought up, that licence lasts 12 months?
That's correct.
Yep, Michelle said that's correct.
So someone can apply for a licence, and that means they can go to that site if there is space available any time for the next 12 months.
That's correct, yes. And we charge them accordingly.
How many times?
So if they're there 4 days a week, we would charge them for 4 days. If they're there for 7 days, we would charge them for 7 days.
So how does that work? Do they then do a report and say, I was there last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Or how does that work?
Yes. That's correct. That's what Christabel's do with the domain. Generally with the food vendors, like Anne will correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume Tameki have told Anne that they're going to be there 3 days, so she bills them accordingly.
Okay, so do you issue as many licences as people apply? Like if there's 30 people applied for an annual licence to permitted food truck or a stall, you issue 30 licences?
So we make it very clear with the domain lay-by that it's limited to 3. It would be the same with the clock tower. I think, and it might pay to join at the table because I've got questions that you will be able to answer.
Just pull a seat up.
It's first in, first served.
Yeah, of course, that's what I understand. But you can have as many licensees as you want, and whoever turns up on the day gets it. Yeah, I think we should keep.
I think Anne has restricted the clock tower to only 2 vendors, though.
We'll hear from Anne, yep.
That is correct, until the young lady with the coffee cart who was asked out at the business estate, her licence was through to the end of this month because of not knowing what was going to happen today. She had to trade somewhere. So, and she's not sort of in competition with Tameki and the burrito gentleman. So you've got K Burritos, Tameki Barbecue, Wild Brew Coffee, and then Nigendi's currently have come back round on Havelock Street.
I don't understand that officer's reply. I understood from Jane, just listening, that we give as many licences as we want, and people turn up, and whoever's first in, best dressed. No.
I would basically you'd only get the 3. If we've got 3 permanent food trucks, which we have now, we wouldn't give any more.
So if I asked for a licence, a permit to be on a permitted site, and I had a business, you would say no.
If we've got existing food trucks there, then yes, we'd have to say no. Because where do we put them?
Sorry,
I don't understand what you're saying.
There's more, Michelle. There's more licences than that issued for the domain lay-by, aren't there? Because there've been issues about who was there first.
Yes, but we sort of know when they're going. Like, so tea and coffee are only Monday to Friday, so we would be able to issue a licence to occupy for another coffee cart on a Saturday and a Sunday. We would make if a coffee cart did come along, we would make them aware that there's already an existing coffee cart during the week. So we sort of try and work with the vendors to make sure they know, and that there's not arguing, because that's the last thing we want is arguing over turf and territory.
So that would be similar to the East Street site. One vendor might apply to be there for 3 days, but you could have another vendor that's there for the other 4 days.
So if I had a potato selling business, you would have, this once again referring through the chair to Dan's remark about the council having discretion, you would say, no, we've got 2 food trucks there, we don't need a potato selling business. If I wanted to buy a permitted site food truck, is that what you're telling me?
What's a potato selling business?
Well, whatever.
Selling potatoes
boiled potatoes with hot potatoes with stuff in them.
Okay.
I'm in a food truck.
Right.
I don't understand the officer's response to the question. Why are we limiting using our discretion to limit?
Because we only have 3 sites, so I can't give everyone a licence.
Okay, bit of order.
No.
So, Michelle, Anne, maybe you can just explain it a wee bit and we'll listen, and then if there's any further questions.
You have a licence to occupy that site for the day. So Tameki have permitted to park outside the clock tower from Monday through to Sunday, but they only choose to do whatever days they do. But they are permitted. But if the rules change, and I'm only going with how many food trucks we have, if they only wanted to work on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, their site could be dedicated to another food truck for the other days. But we don't have the amount of food trucks at the moment wanting to do that. So at the moment, their licences are from Monday to Sunday for the day, and they just get charged per day.
So they get charged 7 days a week for that site?
No, because Tameki will just let me know what days they've worked.
So you're
week.
bagsing it for 7 days, but they pay for however many days they turn up?
Yes, kind of, yes.
Well, that seems unusual to me, and also anti-competitive. Just taking another point through the chair. So if I wanted to come in to sell food in a food truck, that whatever I wanted to sell, I would not be able to sell it even if there was a vacant site there, because it's already booked, if you like, Monday to Friday.
If you wanted to work the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that the other food truck isn't there, not a problem. But you can't work, you can't both be there on the same site on the same day.
And failing that, we would find a discretionary site or suggest discretionary
So
sites.
there hasn't really been the demand at the moment
No.
for that. And my next question is with regards to the 100-metre rule. I note that the new building is going to have a cafe in it within 100 metres of existing cafes. Does it not matter that the Ashburton District Council is putting something up in competition to existing businesses if it's within 100 metres, if it's in a permanent site?
That was why I explained why we brought forward the review of this bylaw, because it wasn't due to be reviewed until later, but that is precisely why we're reviewing it now. It's unlikely that the cafe will be selling food that's in competition with the food trucks we've got at the moment, because the cafe, as it stands, is really only like a coffee bar, for want of a better word. They'll sell coffee. I imagine there's going to be cabinet food, but I don't think it's going to be the sort of cafe where you would go in and order eggs Benny or whatever. It might be you can have a quiche or whatever, possibly soup, something like that, but it's a very small kitchen that's really more of a coffee bar than what you would call a full-scale
I'm just thinking
cafe.
of the commercial businesses that are cafes that sell mainly make their margins on coffees, you know.
Yes.
Down in town.
Yes.
Okay,
Well-
so anyway, on to the question. I would like to see the site remain on Havelock Street.
Thank you. Diane, next.
Quite a lot of my questions have been answered, but I was going to ask, why would you not, if there was a demand, allow 4 sites on East Street, 2 either side of the clock tower, if we can get power up there? And I'd hate to think that we limit it to 3 and another 4th one could come along with a totally different type of food. And to me, we're trying to create a vibrant area around that, and I'd like to see the ability to have at least 4. And maybe round on Havelock Street, even if it was after a certain time, that you could allow a couple more to be there. Because, you know, we don't know who's out there that would be looking at that. And I noted today that we've got 2 families who've given up other jobs to make this their full-time occupation. And with the way our lives are going and with COVID and the, you know, businesses, there could be more people turn to that as an alternative way of living. So my comment is I wouldn't like to see us limit East Street to just 3 if the potential's there to have 4, but I'd certainly like to keep it clear for a couple of car park lengths in front of the Glock.
So just following on from Diane's comment about Havelock Street and having set hours, so obviously that could go in the bylaw, so from 5 p.m. onwards just in that site for food vendors, is that something that's not going to...
Not during the day.
Well, I'm just thinking Havelock Street with all the parking, so...
You're on the Havelock.
Yes, sorry, so East Street obviously is a little bit more different, but as Councillor Wilson mentioned, there is going to be a high demand for parks along Havelock Street, and whether you could make it sort of after hours or from 5 p.m. or something like that. But I'm wondering if there's an issue with you can't put the hood over the parking meter, so how then would you have to go and put some cones out or something, and how would that work? It may not be practical, but just putting it out there, but I'll go to Councillor Wilson.
Yes, I was going to cancel Havelock Street, but that's quite a good idea later as. That was traditional pie cart site when I was young, but I'm sure he didn't come there later in the day. And it was in the evening, not during the middle of the day. But I still think in the middle of the day we shouldn't have a food stall on Havelock Street. But we could have one for 12 months from now, But once the new building's opened, I'd like to see it kept clear in the daytime.
Okay, Jane's got an idea.
We could put up signs that said food trucks only after 5:30 p.m. or something like that. And the other thing is, I don't know, Mel would probably kick me for this because I don't know how on earth you actually do this with a bylaw, but you might want to still allow that site until the building in Bering Square East is finished, because until there is power, etc.
Somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's a good comment, yes.
We can look into that.
You could look at that.
It's a moving target, the finishing of the building.
Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we should leave Havelock Street as it is, as a permitted site, and revert back to the original bylaw. I don't think the food wagons that are there are going to matter tiddly squat to the cafe in the library. Completely different type of food, completely different type of people, I would think. So, and I would not allow food wagons on East Street and by the tower or in front of the tower. You drive into town, it just looks untidy on our main entranceway, in my opinion. So I would leave Havelock Street as it is, as a permitted site, and keep food wagons off East Street.
Thank you. We're getting quite a mixture here. Councillor Rawlinson.
Yeah, sorry, I just have another question. So if on Havelock Street, if we limited to say start at 5:30 and a coffee wagon decided it would like to park there in the evenings, that would mean it's not affecting our cafe because it would be closed.
Well, the library is open late sometimes, so it might be, I don't know, it's impossible to tell at the moment, but you might have a cafe that is always open when the library's open.
Can't see it working, but anyway, I just wanted to ask that question.
Yeah, fair enough. Councillor Cameron.
Just with regards to, in response to Councillor Rawlinson's remark through the chair, that sort of, like, people may not want to pay the price that's available in the cafe. They might choose to have one walking round while they go and visit the domain or walk over the new fancy pedestrian bridge that might look a bit super. So I don't necessarily think that we should be considering our own business preservation in our building when we're considering the food trucks, given we haven't necessarily considered other business preservations when we installed the cafe in our building. I think that's a problem.
No, noted. Okay. Councillor Latham.
Just a final comment, Madam Chair. You know, we can sit around this table for the rest of the day and try and second guess everything. We could do this, then we could do that, and can we put a sign up here, and can we only permit it after 5 p.m? Staff can work that out. We need to decide, and it's my opinion, as I said, leave Havelock Street where it is, keep the food wagons off East Street, and I don't think if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Okay, so we will, we've got two options there. And I'm guessing that the next slide will be about East Street, or we've got some slides coming up on decisions on East Street as well.
We can discuss that now if you'd like.
Oh, okay. So, just a show of hands as who would like to keep Havelock Street as is. Not as. So as is. So revert back to the original bylaw. So we have.
Permitted site, as it is now.
Yeah. So we have two for that. The other options are to have Havelock Street as an option, but only after hours because of parking issues.
I support that. But
You support that as well?
Whatever gets at Havelock Street open. So
Okay.
And that's not only after our building's complete.
Okay. So would you, and this is another question, would you implement that now, or would it be until once our new building is open? Or does that not matter? Oh, Michelle's got her hand up.
Oh, Sorry, I don't mean to have my hand up.
Oh.
Sorry.
I think through you, Madam Chair, the issue about it being staying there until Bering Square is finished only applies if you end up all deciding you do want to use Bering Square East.
Okay. Right. So at this stage, it looks like Havelock Street is an option, but with time regulations. Are you happy with that? Like,
Can we clarify the time regulations?
I think that's for something that staff could probably look at and come back to us, if that's okay. Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if we have time restrictions on Havelock Street, what happens to the present wagons that are outside the clock tower?
So that's where we need to discuss about East Street. So we need to make a decision on whether we allow food trucks to stay on East
We're
Street.
getting bogged down here.
Well, I don't think we are, because we need to discuss which sites are the ones that we are going to permit, and we've got quite a few options here. So, have you got a slide on the East Street one? No. So, I suppose a show of hands as to having some sites. I think someone mentioned 2 between Havelock Street and the Clock Tower, and 2 between the Clock Tower and Cameron Street. Is that too many? Is that what everyone's thinking? Just show of hands for yes or no.
Yes to the site.
Councillor Lovett.
I'll say yes to the site, but can there, again, if it's going to look too crowded during the day, have 2 there all day and then allowing extras after 5:30 like we're doing eventually round on Havelock Street?
I think the demand, it's going to be hard to put something like that in a bylaw. So we either decide 2 sites either side or 1 site either side, which would be a total of 3 sites for that East Street and around Havelock Street. Councillor Cameron.
I think 2 sites on 1 side, sort of personally.
On both sides.
Yeah.
Rather than 4.
Yeah.
So from the Clock Tower to Havelock Street.
Yeah, so they're sort of, so it's like a little...
It's an owl shape. Okay. Show of hands if you agree with that. Councillor Latham?
I know we've restricted ourselves now because of our decision on Havelock Street, but I am totally opposed of having any food wagons on East Street outside the clock tower. It's a great entrance to our town when we come in, and to have food wagons dotted down there, I think destroys the image of the town as people come into it. And I think we'd be far wiser to look at somewhere else.
Are there now?
I know, and that's exactly why I'm making the point.
Okay. Point noted. Everyone else. So who agrees that we still include food trucks or mobile, and now I can't even remember what they're called, mobile shops between the Clock Tower and Havelock Street? So 2 sites.
Well, I agree with 2 sites. Like to see the option for staff to work out the next
2 sites, yes, and staff too. Yes, so that looks like. Remember, this is going to council.
Yeah. So that's 2 sites.
So that's
plus this
site plus the after hours on Havelock Street.
What about between the Clock Tower and Cameron Street? I reckon that was less obstructive than the Clock Tower and Havelock Street, because they sort of
Probably looks better too.
Yes, yeah.
I think in all, we need to make some decisions that then is going to go to council. We're not all here today, so there's going to be some different views, I'm sure, but I think we need to give the staff an idea of what we like. So maybe what we could just say is 2 sites on East Street, whichever end you think, and and another site on Havelock Street, with the option of having an after hours. Councillor Wilson?
How many sites are occupied on East Street at the moment?
Three.
Three. Yeah, well, my opinion is still stay with three, but one between the clock tower and Havelock Street and two the other side once we get it wired up. We'll have to use the status quo until we get it wired up, I guess, otherwise you're going to put somebody out of business.
Yeah. Councillor Cameron?
Just to confirm, so we are investigating getting electricity there, because I don't think we want all those food trucks with generators going.
No, that's right. There's definitely a lot more power going into Bering Square East for concerts and the like, so I'll just need to check with Trevor Watt about exactly where the power points are, and I'm pretty sure they took food trucks into account, but I better make doubly sure.
Thank you. That one's all good to go. Right. Took a bit of time. So,
So I've got down...
you want to just confirm that, so we've got that correct, please, ma'am?
I've got that Havelock Street, we will allow mobile shops and stalls there from 5 p.m. onwards, or we'll bring a recommendation back in terms of the time. And the clock tower, we will allow 2 sites, and we'll look into the power there.
Thank you. Yep.
Does that sound right to you?
That sounds okay.
I thought it was 3 sites at Havelock Street. Sorry to interrupt. The status quo.
Oh, so there's 3 sites already at Havelock Street.
Three
Okay.
sites?
Yeah, because we've got 3 vendors on Havelock Street currently.
Thank you.
Cool, okay.
And it might be better to make it from 5:30 than 5,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect,
Thank you. Right, next.
Cool. So we had 4 submissions on the 3 proposed sites at Lakehood. So 1 submission opposed all 3 sites, 1 opposed both of the south end sites, and 2 opposed the playground site. So council has options to remove all 3 sites, remove some but not all sites, or make no change to the draft bylaw. And the recommended option is to remove the playground area due to the feedback we've received. So what is council's preferred option?
Thank you. Councillor Lovett?
Mr Whippy, they stop down there at the bottom playground. So if we remove this, will that stop him stopping there, because he often is out Lakehood and stops round the place? Has he got a special licence to sell, or is it going to curtail that?
Anne's got her light on.
Through you, Madam Chair, it appears to be a long-standing Spanish custom that nothing stops Mr Whippy.
I think it's more they don't want the food trucks and that down there, but Mr Whippy, I mean, he goes with his kids and parents, and I'd hate to see that tradition stopped. With it.
I think we've never really worried about Mr Whippy because it's such short duration. You know, they'll stop there for a quarter of an hour or so until all the kids have got an ice cream, and then they tootle off to the next place.
I think we don't need to worry about Mr Whippy, because he comes up residential streets ringing his bell, and he'll stop outside people's gates and all sorts of things. So yeah, I take Councillor Lovett's point, but yeah.
Councillor Lovett?
It's only just that you get complaints if he stops here by those ones living up top. That's why I just wanted to make sure that we're not beating him down there. But I don't mind removing that end of Huntington Drive playground out of it, but I think we need the other food sites round, because there's a lot of people down at that lake over the weekends, and it'd be nice to have the food trucks down there. It adds to that atmosphere of the place.
So we'll just go straight to number 2. So remove some but not all sites. So is everyone in agreement that that's our option, and the playground site is the one that's removed? Show of hands, just in case. Yeah, great, thank you.
So 6 submissions were received on the proposed Lockheed Crescent site, all of which opposed the new site. Due to the strong opposition, we're recommending removing this site from the bylaw. So does council agree?
Yes.
Yes?
So everyone's happy with that? Yes. Thank you.
Cool. Two submitters opposed the Chambers Park site, so council can remove the site or make no changes.
I just want to comment on this one. Would this be a discretionary site or would this be a permitted site?
We've got it as permitted in the draft bylaw.
My only view is that it would probably be better as a discretionary site because it's not the kind of place where people would come and have stalls regularly, but occasionally there's the children's Christmas party, there's some events that could be held there. It's quite a large space. I would like to see it as a discretionary site for stall holders. Maybe slight conflict of interest because it's just about across the road from my house, but that's my view. Roger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to refresh my memory, that's on Spaxton Street, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. Right, well, I agree. I think it should be a discretionary site. If there is some function on in the town or some celebration of some sort, it could be used for that occasion. So I would agree with it as a discretionary site.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Why was it assigned through the chair? Why was it assigned as a available site? Why was it selected?
I could probably answer that, or Jane. So when Jane and Tony came up to the community board to talk about this bylaw, there were options that were given, and some of the community board members thought that it might be a good site because of the Christmas party that they have, etc. So that was probably the only reason. It's in the middle of a residential area, which is why I don't think it's probably a good space for permanent, but again, that's just my view. So happy to leave in, but as a discretionary site? Yes? Okay, thank you.
Two submissions were received on the proposed sites in Rakaia. Both submitters were generally in favour, however the Rakaia Community Association recommended some changes. So they recommended to move the Railway Terrace East site slightly to the north or to the south, and recommended to extend the Rakaia Terrace site to double the length. So we've got options to remove the sites, change the sites as suggested, or make no changes.
So this is in your summary booklet on page 12, just at the bottom there, so it might be worth reading, but I'm guessing that the Rakaia Community Association are going to know their town best.
I was just going to say that because I was at the meeting when it came, I took all those pamphlets out and we sat there at that meeting and discussed it all, and I told them to make the recommendation to here, but just shifting them because I didn't want one right beside the dump station. I wanted it moved along, and people park in one of the areas. That's why they wanted that area extended, and so I think it's only proper that we actually support them. I say we need to support what they've recommended.
Just a question, the salmon site, is that a discretionary site for stall holders only, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So the likes of Christabel's who came and submitted this morning, could they, because they're more of a stall instead of a mobile shop, could they then apply for a discretionary site at the salmon tails?
I think the idea of that area being a discretionary site was for one-off events, so like a market or something like that.
Yeah, thank you. So does everyone agree with the change sites as suggested by the Rakaia Community Association? Wonderful, thank you.
So in terms of the other sites, the old post office, the Havelock Street Cul-De-Sac site and the Domain lay-by all had one submitter opposed to them. So does council want to make any changes based on these comments?
I think we've probably discussed the old post office site, and we've heard this morning that it's not suitable. So is everyone happy that goes out? Councillor Cameron?
Yes, I agree with that. The Havelock Street Cul-De-Sac, we had a submitter this morning talking about the intermittent yellow lines. What's the ruling around that? Can we make that a site if they're parking on intermittent yellow lines?
So that's already a site in the current bylaw, and we did discuss it at the workshop in March, and council decided that they wanted to keep it as a permitted site.
Okay, so legally there's no concern with regards to the yellow lines?
I can see Michelle's got her hand up.
Oh, Michelle.
They're not supposed to access from River Terrace, they're supposed to access from in Havelock Street. So if they want to go to that site, they're meant to come into Walker Street and into Havelock Street.
Okay.
So not park on River Terrace and walk across the grass.
Right, thanks.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. And regarding that one, I remember when we workshopped it and we did discuss taking it out, and my memory serves me correctly, we left it in because of, I think it's Rotary or the service clubs that do their potatoes use that, although we have encouraged them to move down a bit, but I think that was the primary reason we did leave it in. But I do take on board the submitter's comments, one submission, about the road safety and people not respecting the yellow lines and thinking they'll park and dash. So my question I ask is, if we took it out, how much would it be missed? Would be great.
Can anyone tell us how many stallholders use that area?
I've never issued a licence.
So there's never been a licence issued for that site?
If I can add as well, we added in a clause to the bylaws saying that charity or community groups don't have to only stay in the permitted sites, so the Rotary Club would still be allowed to go there, even if it's not a permitted site in the bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify my mind, we talk about the Havelock Street cul-de-sac. Are we talking about the cul-de-sac street area, or are we talking about the grass adjacent to River Terrace or under the trees, or what exactly are we talking about there? Or are we talking about where the Rotary Club, most esteemed Rotary Club I may say, sells their potatoes?
Michelle, can you answer that?
I can bring the map up if that helps.
Oh, yes,
That'd be lovely, thank you.
It's
through you, Madam Chair, they do tend to set up on the grass.
Yeah, I know.
And the other ones that I've seen there quite often in the summer are the fruit sellers with the fruit from Otago, so you'll get your cherries and peaches and things. But they are supposed to drive around the corner off
Walker Street.
But I'm not sure if everybody does that or not.
So looking at that map up there, is that pale green area? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
So, okay, right.
So if it's a permitted area and there's been no licences granted for it, but the service clubs regularly use it for fundraisers, what's the best option for it in the bylaw? Do we just keep it as a permitted area, or is it a discretionary site for fundraising opportunities? Don't have any answers. Councillor Wilson, do you?
Thanks, Madam Chair. If we make it discretionary, it means that Rotary clubs that use it would be expected to get a licence perhaps, whereas at the moment in Tynwald they don't. Oh, you don't think so? No.
I've never issued a for Rotary.
No. Well, if it's not used, why have it there? And it is a traffic hazard on the left-hand side, so perhaps we take it out.
Thank you, councillor Latham.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Stuart. And the Rotary doesn't sell their potatoes from there anyway. They do it further down the road, further down River Terrace, underneath the trees. So I've never seen anybody, any stall selling anything there. So I agree with Stuart. We should just take it out and let the status quo remain.
Thank you, councillor Cameron.
I have a different opinion. It may not be used, but if you take it out, it's more difficult to use it, and we don't know what the future foretells. So people are not obliged, people haven't used it, so they're not obliged, clearly not feeling the need to use it. I'd leave it in, just to give flexibility in the plan, yeah.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Yeah, I tend to leave it in, and I think what has changed is EA Network Centre. Prior to that, it wasn't a parking or a stopping issue so much, but with the EA networks and that piece of road being narrowed and so busy, but perhaps it needs some rules around it that they don't park out on the grass. I mean, I've seen the fruit people there with their apricots. They're pretty close out to the road because they want to be seen, and if they had to park and set up in that little cul-de-sac and people must come round there to park, would make it much safer. How you police it, I don't know, but the safety is the biggest issue there, I think.
Thank you, councillor Lovett.
I would like to see it stay in, and I have seen people park in there to access, but perhaps they should have, there's rules around it and there's signage on the road when they're there telling them to park round in the cul-de-sac, and perhaps bring it forward into the cul-de-sac a bit.
Jane?
Through you, Madam Chair, we just don't have the ability to enforce that sort of thing, and you're not going to get people coming along with little signs. The people off a farm selling apricots, they're not.
Okay, so show of hands to keep it in as a permanent site. Yes. Okay, thank you. Do we have any more on there?
So there was
the domain lay-by.
Do we want to leave that?
So we had one submitter opposed. Oh, yes, I see. So her suggestion was putting the coffee van in the car park area. I presume the reason why the coffee carts and everyone is on the domain lay-by is because it's a state highway and everyone's passing through, and as we heard from the submitter this morning, most of their custom is from people who are not locals but are travelling through. So is everyone happy to keep the domain lay-by as a permitted site? Councillor Wilson?
Is there going to be parking on the railway side of the main highway under the reconstructed intersection? At the moment you can park there and run across the road. Depends on the Whakatahi.
Not 100% sure.
No, I don't know.
Anyway, how many sites are actually in there? Has they all got power? None got power? How many licensed sites?
I think we have a limit of 3, and as far as I'm aware, there's no power there. No power.
Is there a fight there for who's first in, first served? What happens there?
And Michelle.
Michelle, maybe. Could you answer
we
that
haven't
question?
had we haven't had an issue with squabbling and fighting. Like, there's 2 different fruit and vegetable people. One guy comes once a week, I think it's on a Wednesday, and the other guy comes the alternate day. So they seem to work it out amongst themselves. We are looking into the possibility of power there, whether it's feasible or not, but that's something we'd have to, we're working on costings, and we'd have to come back to you on that. But there's not currently power at that site.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
The other question is, how do the cherry people or the seasonal apricot people fit in? They seem to just turn up when it's cherry season.
Michelle, back to you.
Generally, we would see them and then go and approach them. So that's how we've managed to get the 2 fruit vendors to pay. They've been occupying those sites for a long time, and then we've sort of, I guess, taken a bit more notice of what's happening and actually approached them and said, you know, you can be here, but you need a license to occupy, and there's a fee involved in it. So generally they're receptive. If they're not prepared to pay, well, then they can't occupy the site.
Great, thank you. So everyone's happy to keep the domain lay-by as is? Thank you. Any other questions?
So other changes that were proposed included the bylaw name change, the trading hours, and the clause about charities and community groups. So as mentioned at the start of the presentation, the majority of submitters supported the name change, but there were no submissions received specifically on the time change or the new clause. So is council still happy with these changes?
So everyone's still happy with trading hours to 10 p.m. I would like to see it brought forward to 9 p.m. personally. Councillor Cameron?
Currently, what is the trading hours now? Just remind me.
I think it's half an hour before dark they have to close.
So in the winter it's like 5 o'clock or something.
Yes. Yeah.
Civil twilight.
Well, obviously the trading hours need to change. If we're not going to allow that Havelock Street to open till after 5 o'clock anyway, they'll be open for 10 minutes and they'll have to shut again. So clearly the trading hours need to change. I mean, a lot of people go to clubs and bars in town and want to participate in food trucks, you know, after hours, so I think 10 o'clock's very reasonable.
Thank you, Councillor Latham.
Just a question, if we extend the trading hours to 10 p.m, and I'm thinking of the sites on Havelock Street who can be there from 5 p.m, and I know we're going back a bit, but I can remember meeting Councillor Wilson there at about 1:30 one Sunday morning a number of years ago when the old pie cart. Yeah, that's right, coffee and chicory. So if we restrict that to 10 p.m, are we cutting it short for that particular site?
Can each vendor apply for additional hours, or is that once we set the hours that's set?
It's not currently allowed for within the bylaw for them to apply for an extension, but I can see that Michelle's got her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Michelle.
Sorry, with Ibiza and Methven operate till about 10 o'clock, with all the others seem to finish around that 7:30, 8 o'clock. So I don't think there's ever been a demand within Ashburton for later hours.
The young ones go to bed a bit earlier, obviously. Okay, so we're all agree that trading hours will be changed to 10 p.m. Yeah, show of hands, yes, and lots of nods, thank you. And the third one, the clause stating the charity and community groups may be exempt from site restrictions. Everyone agree with that? I'm taking a yes, thank you. And the bylaw change is obvious, I think. Yes, Jane.
Well done, Madam Chair. I just thought there was one thing that we didn't finish talking about, was whether it's okay to leave a mobile shop sitting there permanently. Because we've changed the name now to trading in public places, but if it's a mobile shop, is it okay, like the one in Methven, to leave it there on a permanent basis?
Thank you. Michelle, you've got your hand up.
Oh, sorry, I didn't take it down.
Oh, that's all right. Mel, any comment on that?
At the moment, we do have a clause in the bylaw saying that we can ask a mobile shop to move if necessary, but I don't think we've had any major problems so far, as far as I am aware.
My question probably goes alongside that, in that we heard before that a mobile shop can say they'll be there from Monday to Sunday, but they may only turn up 4 days out of those 7 days, but they don't have their mobile shop parked there permanently. So do we need to have something, and that's just what Jane said, do we need to have something in place so that, because obviously even though, and I'm taking the Methven Kabiza as an example, but they are parked there 7 days a week. Well, they've been parked there all year pretty much, but they may only open 4 nights a week. So are they only paying for that site for the 4 nights, or are they paying to be parked there permanently? And I think that possibly needs to be tidied up, but I'm not sure how.
So
Jane?
I guess one possible solution, and in view of what Mel said, if there's that ability there now, perhaps we need to be telling that person that they can only have their caravan or whatever it is parked there at the times that they are paying for, that they're operating.
So that would mean that if they wanted to leave their or their mobile shop there for 7 days a week, they would then pay 7 days.
Is that what we want?
No.
Right, I'll go to Councillor Cameron.
I think Roger brought up the point earlier that he thinks that mobile shops impact on the look of the town. I personally don't agree with that, but I think if they're parked there 24/7, then it's no longer a mobile shop by definition, and they should definitely be charged. I mean, I personally think if they've got a licence all year and we're not allowing competition in case they turn up, they should be charged regardless. And I think they should be a mobile shop.
Yeah.
And whilst they're there, they're open. Whilst they're not there, then whilst they're closed, they're not there.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
I'm exactly the same. It's a mobile shop. If you want to be there permanently, you should be paying for permanently what a shop does as well. Because really, I heard before, $3,000 for a year is what they're paying. Cheapest. You know, it is a mobile shop. So you can stand there, you don't pay much, but you have to take it off.
I think we have to make it fair for everyone.
Yeah.
Councillor Wilson.
Yes, nothing looks worse than a closed mobile shop on a prime site. People will expect to get something, go there, and it shut and turns them away. So,
Councillor Latham.
I just agree that if they're open, they're there. If they're not open, they move away. As Stuart said, there's nothing worse than driving into town and seeing a row of caravans and mobile shops all closed up. I still think it's a mistake to have them on the main road.
Thank you, Councillor Rawlinson.
And I agree, and I ask myself if somebody, what the person is doing in Methven, if somebody tried to do that on Havelock or East Street and left it there for 7 days and it was operating for 4, I think we'd all have something to say about it. So I think it does need to be tidied up.
Thank you. Is that something, Mel, that can be added?
Yes, I can
into
look
the
into
bylaw.
that.
Yeah, I think sorry, Michelle.
So just to clarify, so if the site in Methven, if he's not open, you don't want his caravan there?
Well, that, yeah, I think that's what everyone's saying, but it also means that it aligns with all the other mobile shops that are in the district.
So if he's open, say, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, is he allowed to leave his caravan there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or do you want it taken away each day? Just so we're clear what we let him know.
I think
the sites in Ashburton, the vendors are highly unlikely to leave their caravans there.
Yes, agree. I think if he is open, my personal view, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, he would be allowed to keep that there and then take it away for the days that he's not, to allow for other mobile shops to come in.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree. If an operator has a block of days, then he's allowed to have his caravan there during those days. But if he has a day when he's not trading, he takes his shop away.
From memory, he operates 7 days in the winter to coincide with the ski season, but in the summer his hours are reduced.
That's correct, I think, just from memory.
Yeah.
and from now on, he will be open seven nights a week, I would say, with school holidays coming up. Is that, okay, so that can be added into the draft bylaw that will go to council, so the other councillors can debate that. Councillor Cameron?
Hines Domain, we had a few.
Yes, good idea, yep.
Yes, so just on the next slide.
And sorry, just to interrupt, and Ashburton Airport, all those ones.
Yeah, it's coming up on the next slide, so that's perfect timing.
So the submitters suggested including some new sites, so the Bering Square West, Hines Domain, Argyle Park, EA Network Centre, Sportsfield area, Ashburton Airport, sites on the east side of Rakaia and on the east side of Ashburton. There was also the mention of more powered sites, that sites should be close to toilet facilities and bins, and a suggestion that the Saturday market is moved to the south end of West Street car park in winter. So do council want officers to follow up on any of these?
Councillor Cameron?
Why did they suggest to move to the south end of West Street car park in winter?
Because it gets more sun, I think.
Just a note, it wasn't actually the Ashburton District Farmers Market that made that suggestion, was it? Someone else has made that suggestion. Yeah. So the farmers markets submitted to say they would like to see the north end of West Street car park remain available for the farmers market. So they're obviously happy being in that position all year round.
Because we've tried, offered alternative options for that the council has over the years, and they like that.
Yeah. So is there anything on that list that you think should be included?
I think the bins, we should have rubbish bins provided by or charged to or whatever, but there should be rubbish bins where we have mobile sites.
Thank you. Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would certainly consider the airport as a discretionary site when there's functions on out there. Bering Square West, I'm not so sure, although I'd prefer Bering Square West rather than East Street. But the others, I think, are Argyle Park, discretionary, if there's a function on up there. Yeah.
Thank you. Hines Domain, maybe we'll get some views from down there. That seems like obviously quite a good site, but it would just be where they would set up the stall, because as Councillor Wilson said before, we were down there a couple of weeks ago and it is very muddy and not sort of that pleasant around the grass area. But would that be up to, so each domain or reserve board, can they obviously have domain users and they have MOUs with the users. Does that come under that side of thing, or does it come under the mobile shop bylaw? Comes under the bylaw, so even though it's on the right. Okay.
And through you, I think you need to be a little bit careful about the reserve land, because there are some legal limitations on what you sell on reserves is supposed to be linked back to recreation purposes, or the purposes of enjoyment of the reserve, I think might be the right words.
Okay. So the domain lay-by is exempt from that? No. Okay. Councillor Brahm.
Just going back to the bins. If you've got a mobile shop, why don't you have any bins? You know, every other shop will have stuff.
So most mobile shops should have their own bins?
To me it is.
Yes.
Yeah, to me it is. So that 0.4 is not going ahead. Is that just the market, the Saturday market will be staying where it is? Is that correct?
Unless we haven't got to that yet, but yeah, at this stage.
Yep, that's fine.
So I'll go to Councillor Lovett.
We haven't got the North East Industrial Park on there, have we? Out for vendors.
Was that considered the east side of Ashburton?
We haven't got that one on there, but there is the young woman who was operating there that was in the Guardian. We did ask her to desist because she was on private land, but didn't have a resource consent. But as it transpires, that site has got a resource consent. It's owned by Tricroft, I think, and they have got resource consent to build a cafe, but they just haven't done it yet. So on that basis, I've told her she can carry on there, because although it's not a building and it's a mobile shop, it's probably a little bit pedantic to push that any further. But no, we haven't got anything else provided for out there.
Can we have a site out there if somebody wants to go out there? Should we be including it with the rest just to have a look at possible places in the meantime until that cafe's built or whatever? Because a lot of people work out there, and
well, as I say, she will resume. She'll resume there. Yeah.
But Mel, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so from memory, at the workshop in March, we were asked to look at possible sites at the business estate, and we did have a look and didn't find anywhere that we thought was particularly suitable. But it is important to note with that area and the suggested ones on the screen that under Schedule 1 Part B of the bylaw, people can apply to have their mobile shop or stall in an area that's not permitted or discretionary, and there's certain criteria that they have to meet, such as the 100-metre rule and be in an area of 50 kilometres or less speed limit. So even if we don't include those areas as permitted or discretionary, they still may be able to operate there.
Okay.
That's okay. And the rubbish bin one, there's a lot of these guys, they don't, the stuff they sell don't need rubbish bins, so it shouldn't be a ruling. I think it's...
Maybe if they could bring their own rubbish bins.
Yes, I think
most of them would if they needed to. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, at Hines Reserve, if you came in the gate and went right instead of left, but I would be loath to make it an approved site without actually mentioning or talking to the reserve board, because they would feel they would be completely overruled, because I don't know what the legal thing is, but public relations would be good to talk to the reserve board. And also, if Jane says it's not legal, well, it may not be legal, but we turn a blind eye now and again, don't we?
We do. I said that with my microphone off. Did you notice? I think the point Mel made is a valid one. There's nothing to stop people coming to us with a proposed site, and we can then weigh that up and see, does that need a bit of consultation with a reserve board? Is it dangerous from a traffic point of view? All those normal sort of things that Rick and his team will look at before they say yes or no. So this isn't an exhaustive list, like if you're not on the list you can't do it. There's still an avenue there for people to make other suggestions.
So in that case, we've got all those suggestions up there, and Councillor Letham said that the Ashburton Airport would be a good spot as a discretionary site. Are there any others that you think we should include as discretionary sites, or should we leave them so that they could come up as a they're not discretionary sites, but sort of on application, I suppose. Councillor Cameron?
Just going back to Lynette's point with regards to the industrial site, we have one coffee cart out there that has resource consent. There could be a cafe, so that seems reasonable. There isn't, as I understand from the officer, an appropriate place to put another site. Is that correct? Because there's heaps of room out there. On the roads. And this 100-metre business, I find that unusual because we're not consistently applying that rule. So, one coffee cart out of the industrial site doesn't seem enough to feed all those people if they choose to go to get a sandwich. But then we've got the 100-metre rule to the coffee car, but we don't seem to be applying the 100-metre rule anywhere else, or we'd have no permitted sites, pretty much.
Well, because it's a resource consent for that site, the 100 metres is irrelevant anyway.
Yeah, it was just brought up.
But there's still nothing to stop somebody coming along if they do happen to find a site, just because we couldn't find one that wasn't suitable. Maybe somebody else can. But that young woman has also asked me if her friends to Meki Barbecue could come out now and again. So I've told her I'll have a think about that, but probably no real reason why not. But I'll talk to our planning manager about it before I go back to her.
Yeah, I can see no I mean, surely there's a site. We've got a site in front of a big, huge building that we're building with heaps of people going in and out. And so I would think there'd be heaps of sites over there.
This is private land. It's not our land.
It's not our land.
Oh, the roads are not our, the streets are not.
No, this property that she's on is a
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not talking about that particular. I'm talking about another site, but for a third. I'm not talking about that.
On the road, we couldn't find anything.
But there must be. I defy that. There's heaps of room on that road.
We'll keep going. Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with all of those up there. Whether it's discretionary or permitted, I don't know. But my question is the EA Network Centre sports field area, which is yet to be developed. Would that not be in conflict with the cafe?
It would.
It would.
Yeah. So they're just suggested sites from our submitters. So
not from staff.
Not from staff. So we can pick and choose if you think there's any. And as Councillor Letham said, Ashburton Airport would be a good spot for discretionary, as a discretionary site.
Right, and just regarding the Hines one, you know, it was said earlier, if they came in the gate into the domain and turned right, there is a grassed area there, but in winter it's going to be mud. But I wondered about just 20 metres down the road, right outside the pool. The road's quite wide there. There's quite an area where maybe it could be on, you know, it's on asphalt if it was permitted.
I think that would possibly work if it was a mobile shop, but the people that submitted asking for that site have a stall that they set up. So I don't think a roadside is going to.
Okay.
The domain lay-by works for them, but I don't know if that spot would work.
It's a big stall full of bottles and jars of pickles and jams and everything.
Like the ones up in the domain lay-by.
That's them.
It's them, yeah. Just have to work through it, I think. Yeah.
Councillor Wilson.
Yes, when you're talking about the northeast industrial area, I knew the people that had the cafe come in the old industrial site, and it's a viable business as long as, you know, they rent the site, they do the hours and everything. To let mobile people come in could make a permanent business uneconomic. And if somebody's in the industrial site and does it on private land as a business, I wouldn't be in favour of letting somebody else in there just to park on the side of the road and undercut their business. So we've got to be a bit careful and undermine property rights.
Okay. So from what I've heard, so far the suggestion of the Ashburton Airport is probably the only one out of those sites. Councillor Letham.
Could I just make one comment regarding the airport? I've just been pondering that, and at first instance I thought, yes, it would be a good discretionary site, but some of the airport organisations, when there are big events on it, they actually run their own thing, that we may actually be interfering with the private enterprise out there too. So I'm going to withdraw my thoughts on that, and it shouldn't be included at all, I don't think.
So we'll leave that one. Councillor Cameron.
I disagree with Roger, and I think it should be. And I also think didn't we discuss it? We were going to go back to the Hines Reserve Board and see if there's a site in Hines. I mean, all those potential sites could be discretionary sites. They're not.
Well, they're not discretionary sites. Are only stalls.
Yeah.
But
you can have discretionary.
You can also
for trucks, can't you? A discretionary site's a site.
Oh, yes.
It's not. It's not a stall or a truck. It's a site. And people apply.
Spexton Street, Chambers Park area is a discretionary site for stall holders only.
Yes.
That's specified, yeah, okay.
But I think we should be investigating all these sites and declining them or not declining them based on, other than just us, a few of us sitting around here randomly deciding.
But haven't we had a workshop on all of this previously?
And that's why they came up, didn't they?
No, this has come from the submitters.
People that know, the actual people that know. No, we haven't looked at them, no.
These have come from submitters, so we still have to look to see that whether we should be including them or not.
Yeah, I think.
Yes, I understand it's frustrating, but this is our job. Councillor Wilson.
What about Donna Fable's submission on the east side? It would be a wonderful place for a food truck, I'd say, down there if you could have a side. Well, that's is there a place or not?
So obviously the staff had gone out and looked at sites. We've had some submitters come in with some other options.
Yeah, I think we need to remember, well, I mean, Bering Square East is on the east side, but I think we need to remember too, though, that it's not an exhaustive list. As I mentioned before, people can come to us if they've got an idea. I mean, I think the main reason with having the discretionary sites is if you're somebody from out of town thinking, where could I go, and you don't know the area at all, I suppose that's quite a good place to start. You could have a look at that list. But, yeah, it isn't meant to be completely exhaustive, so if somebody came to us and said they thought a certain site would be good and we can't see any reason why not, then they'll get the okay.
Mm. And possibly we just leave it as that, and as long as that's well known within the bylaw that people can do that. And I'm guessing from Michelle's comments before is that people do just turn up. Yes, I see she's got a lot. People just turn up and will set up, and then they don't necessarily contact council beforehand. Michelle?
Generally, people want high-profile areas. So when I thought about the east side, I struggled to think of anywhere that would be suitable for, like, there's that park opposite the Hampstead, the Oxford Street basketball stadium, but that's off the beaten track and close to residential housing. So I'd imagine you'd get opposition from the residents if that become a food truck site.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. So if we left those suggestions in, they've still got to come in and apply.
Yep.
Whether it's discretionary or permitted, they've still got to come in and have the discussion with your department.
No, they need a licence.
They need a licence, yeah.
But if we don't put them in, it would still be that, if, as you said, somebody had an idea they wanted to go to the Ashburton airport, they have to come and have the discussion anyway.
Yeah.
So there's no great advantage for putting them in.
No.
But I think, yes, you said earlier, the clarification of the rule in the bylaw is the secret to having people realise that they can come and have that talk.
Is that clear, Mel? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
As far as the bottom line goes, there was only one person wanted to shift it, and I would be reluctant to shift it, create confusion, so I'd rather leave it at the north end.
Thank you. And we've heard that there is, you're looking into putting more powered, or putting power in a couple of extra sites, the lay-by, is that correct? And where was the other? Oh, and of course Bering Square East, there'll be some, so that's covered. Site should be close to toilet facilities and bins. I'm wondering whether we need to put in a something where they bring their own bin if necessary. And toilet facilities, I don't think we're going to be building toilets in the domain lay-by for a start. Probably. Councillor Brown?
Just one question. With power to site, is there a different price for that? Because it's not cheap to put it in. And we heard that if you use your...
Michelle?
There was the question for a start. Yep.
currently the fee's the same. We have had discussions with Colin about whether we do need to have a separate fee and charge for powered versus non-powered sites. So that's something that he would need to put in the fees and charges if he decides that's a good option.
I think it should be, to be quite honest, because if you use your generator, like one gentleman said when he was still here, $100 a day. Yep. Well, yep. Hold on, why are we giving it away for him?
Yep. Thank you, that's something we could look into.
We could ask Colin to include that in the next annual plan. Yes. When we review the fees, that's taken into account.
Yep, I think that makes sense. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
My question is, what's the position with people that sell cherries just on the side of an East Street in the doorway and things like that? Do they get a permission, or do you just, what happens there?
I would have to ask Michelle whether the cherry person on East Street applies or not. That's the one you remember is not actually our land outside the shop. Yeah, so never had any complaints.
No, I'm not complaining, I just wonder what the position is.
Michelle?
They should be applying for a licence to occupy, and we should be charging them a fee. I know a couple of years ago we did approach the cherry person and tell him what the charge would be, and he told us where to put his cherries. He didn't want us there to hear from us again. We don't charge the cookie lady, the cookie time lady, because that money, I guess it helps the student out, but it also goes to, a portion of it goes to charity. That's sort of an officer's discretion. But yeah, the cherry people should be paying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know, thank you. So do we want to follow up with any, we're just going to leave that as is? Yeah, great, thank you. Was that the last? Or do you need clarification, or?
Just, was there a desire to see a clause included for mobile shops and stalls to provide their own bins? Or did we move away from that?
That might be a matter that is best addressed through the licence that the property team issue.
Actually, that makes sense. Thank you, Councillor Lovett.
Number one, when you're looking at following up these sites, I think a network centre, the sports field should come out at the moment if they're in conflict with the cafe down there and there's nothing on those sports fields.
So they're not in there. We're asking whether they want to be included.
Might just do more work.
Yeah, leave them all.
Yeah, because we have had a few on Hines Domain. We need to look at that.
Thank you. Here we go.
So that's the end of the presentation, but is there anything to be raised that we've missed?
Sorry, councillors, it's talking, I can't hear Mel.
I was just saying it's the end of the presentation, but is there anything that anyone wants to raise that hasn't been discussed?
So, I mean, we've all read the submissions, we've all gone through the summary document. Is there anything? I think we've had quite a good discussion on this, and we've had workshops as well. So obviously you finalise the bylaw and it goes to council on the 27th of July.
Yeah.
Anything anyone wants to add? Councillor Cameron.
I've got a lot to say, but I'm going to stick to one question. Good. When it goes to council on the 27th of July, will we have a feedback, Jane, with regards to the power business? Do you think you'll have an answer by then from the architect?
I should do, yes.
And will we also have, as part of that submission, part B of the question, discussions with regards to Lane's point on the charging for the electrics? Will that be included in the bylaw?
No, that won't, but we'll separately get that on the list to be addressed when we do the next annual plan, so that it goes through that fee process.
Thank you.
So that can't come in until the next annual plan, because we've already set fees and charges for this annual plan, so it can't. And yes, and good to get some additional information on the Barron Square East sites regarding power.
Perfect. I can see Michelle.
Oh, Michelle, you have your hand up.
We'll endeavour to also get whether it's feasible to put power in at the lay-by for the 27th as well.
Great, thank you.
Perfect.
No, but I think because we did have submitters asking for powered sites, especially at the lay-by, that's probably good to have that information going forward. Okay, that looks like we are all done. Thank you very much, Mel and Rick, and Richard, Michelle and Jane, and all the councillors for being here today. We will break now for lunch, and we're back here again at 1 o'clock. We have got submissions on the draft waste management and minimisation plan consultation. So we've got hearings from 1 until possibly 1:30. We've just got 4 or 5 submitters, and then we'll be deliberating after that on the draft waste management and minimisation plan. Thank you very much.